Joining us to discuss how local authorities handle alerts is Sergeant Anthony Aussieker, Public Information Officer for the Evansville Police Department. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So tell me about what happens when somebody calls the police department about a potential missing person.
So everything starts with patrol response. So our patrol officers will go out and take the initial report. So they're going to speak to the reporter. They're going to talk to anyone else that might be in the house. Like with a child, they need to know what time the child normally gets home from school or what any possible after school activities or anything like that. Gather as much information. You know, for say an endangered adult, they need to know any diagnoses, any mental capabilities or mental difficulties or diagnoses. So then they can determine whether they need to contact a detective and have them come out and further the investigation, or if just a simple report would be taken. In those instances where a detective is called, they need to confirm those diagnoses. So they'll speak with an appropriate medical provider, so whether that's the primary care physician or a hospital or a mental health specialist to confirm that, because then they'll contact the clearinghouse to process that information, determine whether that alert's going to be given.
So I suppose certain things like medications that they're on, those things do go into play as far as...
Absolutely, especially if it's a medication that's a life-sustaining medication. So if it's something that they have to take on a regular basis to make sure that they survive, that's vital information, because if we start getting into the point where they're due for their next dose and they're not there to take that dose, that makes the risk factors increase tremendously.
And I suppose, you know, I've seen on some of the alerts where they'll even say like what they were wearing and stuff like that, that you need to pay attention. What did you put on your kid that morning, or what did they wear when they left?
Absolutely. That's very vital, and that's one of the key pieces of information when we contact the Indiana State to let them know that we need to maybe issue a potential alert is an up-to-date description of what that person was wearing and where they could possibly be, any vehicle description, more than just that they drive a white car. We want to know that they drive a white Hyundai with a license plate, any dents, anything that sticks out. You know, and then with children, you know, do they have a bright colored backpack? Are they wearing a character type shoe to school? Any of those intricate details, so then as a person driving by, they can make, oh, I remember that. So anything to draw more attention to this person we're trying to find.
So is a local police department who you should call first when something happens?
Absolutely, absolutely. Contact 911 for a missing or endangered person first.
And then you guys, like you said, you go through the other steps. So what is the process if the department feels like an Amber Alert or Silver Alert should be issued?
So it'll be similar. Our patrol officers are going to go out first. They're going to talk to that reporting party to determine, you know, what are the circumstances. When was the person last seen? Gather all that initial information. When they determine that it's an at-risk situation or a person that may potentially need to be put on an alert, they'll contact that detective, and then the detective, through their supervisors and through the Indiana Clearinghouse, will contact them with all the appropriate information. There's essentially a checklist that they'll go through to determine whether the alert is suitable, and then the state will issue that. During the process, they'll contact our records division as well. They will enter the missing person into what's called NCIC. It's a nationwide database. So then if any police officer in the United States runs that person's name, it'll show that they're missing from our local jurisdiction. So then they can contact us and let us know that they've had contact with them.
So how often does this happen, that people are calling about a missing child or adult?
It's kind of dependent on the time of year. During summer, when summer break first starts off, you know, kids are excited, they're celebrating, they're hanging out with friends, they're not really paying attention to times. So if they have say they have a curfew, they're supposed to be back home by 7. Well, they're having fun, they're playing, so they don't pay attention. So we get a lot of those then. And then even when school kind of starts back in, because again, they're maybe hanging out at the bus stop, they stopped at the park on their way home. So it's kind of seasonally dependent, but it does happen somewhat regularly. Thankfully, a majority of the time, it's a student or a child that, you know, maybe just didn't return on time. So it's not that they're missing, they're just not where they're supposed to be.
Right. They just are not paying attention. So I know we talked about earlier, Amber Alerts are sent to phones and Silver Alerts are not. So how do you distribute the information about the Silver Alerts?
So those are, like we would post on our social media pages and our Facebook pages and things like that. So then we get that information out as fast as possible. And then it is disseminated. You can, I believe through cell phone carriers, pick to allow those alerts to come through. Okay. So then they're distributed, and when those are entered, they can be sent out and you can get an alert on your phone. You know, when you hear that loud tone, letting you know that there's some type of an alert to be aware of.
So how helpful are those alerts?
They're incredibly helpful. The more information we can get out, the fastest is incredible. So if we can send, especially in our local community, if we can send information to Henderson, Kentucky, you know, Posey County, Warwick County, Gibson County, to those surrounding counties and get that information out in a timely manner, if that person is in a vehicle or they may be traveling, we're able to get those people on board and get those eyes out there so then we can hopefully find this person as soon as possible.
So from what you're saying, there aren't that many alerts. And so I'll confess, I don't think I have it set up on my phone to get alerts because I can't tell you that I've ever received one. But it sounds like I should, and it's not like I'm going to be inundated with text all the time.
No, it's not. As far as an amber or silver alert, it's not a regular occurrence, especially down here. Like I said, thankfully, a majority of the time, these individuals, adult or child, they're located rather quickly.
So are there any local good outcomes of silver alerts that you could share?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but again, it kind of goes back to that situation where when we go out on these runs, what's called a BOL can be put out for this person. That's a be on the lookout. And dispatch will disseminate that to all of our officers that have a working computer in their car. They'll also send it to surrounding counties. And that is incredibly effective because then all of our officers know to be looking for this described person to where ultimately they're located before the need arises to send it to a nationwide alert.
Well, how important are regular people when they get alerts? How important is, them, are they getting that information and then reporting it? How important is that to the investigation?
Those are always important, and I've always said that no investigation is solved by the police work alone. It's always in conjunction and help with our community. So in those situations where we put out the information, or say we posted on our Facebook page that this person was last seen in a specific area, we start getting messages on our Facebook page and phone calls almost immediately. Hey, I think I saw that person at, say, Green River and Lynch. So an officer will go by there and check. Or I recognize this person, they normally frequent this area. That's all information that we may not get during that initial call, call for service. So those are places that our investigators, our officers can follow up on immediately.
And that's, and like you said, that helps bring a successful conclusion.
Absolutely.
What would you want people to know about the process of finding missing people?
Share information. Share information. Never assume that we already know what you have to share. So many times we've heard people say, well, I thought you guys would know this. Well, there are so many times that there are a lot of people that have information that one little piece of information may be all we need to find one of these people that are missing. So if you have information, call us. Again, you can contact us through Facebook. I will say that our Facebook page is not monitored 24/7. So call 911, call Central Dispatch, get an officer to check and confirm the information that you have to share.
Well, I think sometimes we get a little tainted by crime shows on on television, and where they poo-poo people calling in and giving information, and that's really actually very important.
It is, and that's an awful portrayal of how we as law enforcement, especially in the local community, and our Central Dispatch, they do a fantastic job, especially in a situation like this, of sharing information and helping the caller understand that every piece of information is important. Our detectives are great. They work very hard, and they would be more thankful for a lot of information, even if they don't need every little piece of it, than not having enough.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Good information.
Thank you.